You guys couldn't hear me this whole time. Oh my goodness, Mick, thank you so much. So apparently I was muted and I was telling you guys all about Lead Grow Deepen. You got to see my smiles, and yes, I see you guys. Thank you so much. How about I repeat myself? Because I forgot to unmute myself. Technical difficulties. What I was saying was this is Lead, Grow, Deepen. We lead with inclusion, grow diverse representation, and we deepen our partnerships, diversity, equity, inclusion. Today's guest is Kendra Kolling. She is the farmer's wife. We are going to be talking to her about joy, resilience, and sandwiches. And yes, sandwiches, you guys, these aren't just your normal run amok sandwiches. These are amazing. Before I bring in Kendra, I'm just going to do a quick bio of her. She's been cooking is her passion. She's been in the restaurant industry since she was 14. While she worked in PR, she had her own juice cart at the farmers markets. That's where she met her husband. They got married back in 1997. They had their business, and she'll talk all about that. But from there, she started making sandwiches in the farmers market, and it has blossomed and boomed since then. And when I talk about sandwiches, you guys, just take a look at this. This is more than just a sandwich. But without further ado, can you guys put a 1 in the chat to applaud for our guest for today, Miss Kendra Kolling? Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank
You have to forgive my muted action in the beginning. If you guys have ever watched the diversity series, just know that it is a casual conversation. And so I want to make sure you guys are here. Use the chat box. Yes, all of that is going to be amazing. So Kendra, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we get into all these delicious sandwiches, tell us from the beginning, how you got started. What was it? Yeah.
Well, in actuality, I didn't plan any of this. This was life unfolding, and I was just along for the ride, honestly. Yes, I do love to cook. And yes, I met my husband at a farmer's market. And I one day was going for a bag of apples, and I instead bagged the apple farmer. And he swept me away, courted me in the beautiful rolling hills of Sebastopol, amongst the Gravenstein apple trees and wild blackberries. And it just seems so romantic and just such a, idyllic lifestyle and opportunity to start a life together. And so I was all in. It looked great. And then reality sets in, and farming is hard. Farming is pretty tough stuff. There's just so much unknown, so many very unknown variables. Mother Nature always holding the final hand, and and then just the margins are really lean. And so when it's not just picking apples and baking pies. It's up at dawn and home after dusk, and just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And when our family started to grow, and bills continue to come in, I that's when I turned to, how can I help the farm's bottom line? Yes, I have three children, two years apart, and then there's Elena, my youngest, and in 2010 was when things were getting a little dire. I mean, I literally was looking for change in the couch, change in the back seat of the Volvo to, get the kids to school, buy the birthday presents to the parties they were invited to. So, I've always been a hard worker. I come from blue collar, hardworking roots, family stock, and I, learned a lot on the fly. I, was right alongside my husband, pruning trees and bucking brush, and I'm not afraid of a good, honest, hard day's work. So, resilience and resourcefulness, two definite characteristics of a farmer's wife, that I applied to, making things work for my family. I basically did this for survival. The mother of invention is really just to survive. And I had an opportunity to join my husband at a farmer's market and make sandwiches and make breakfast for customers. And that's where I am in that photo with my daughter Elena back in 2010 in Marin at a farmer's market. And there we are on our Macy's Presto griddle cooking bacon. And it's funny to think, now I've graduated to, three 36-inch grills powered by propane, at two of the finest markets in the country, if not the state of California, if not the country. And it's an honor to be there today. It's long hours, just like farming. It's long hours, and it's a lot of hard work, a lot of heavy lifting. But at the end of the day, all of the thank yous and all of the just love and joy that I receive from my customers is what keeps me going at the end of the day. If I didn't receive so much love, then I probably would have hung it up a long time ago. But it fills my soul. It's taken over my life. It's very much continued to make me who I am today. And I am really so grateful for the life that I've just that I've accepted, and that I lead. I'm very, very grateful for that. It's a big part of.
So the reason why I brought you onto the Lead Grow Deepen series is really, I feel like you have mastered the art of connection. You have mastered the art of not only connecting with people for what you need, but like getting things from them, but like how you are able to connect and give back. There's this really awesome, you guys. Okay, I'm going to be showing a lot of pictures of sandwiches. Okay, just know this because they're amazing. Maybe you know how they say don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Don't make a presentation with food pictures when you're hungry. Like, it is terrible because I'm like, my stomach's growling. I'm looking at this. There's nothing in my house that looks this great. But you said this really awesome thing when we were in one of the pre-interviews and I was looking at the pictures and you were describing them. You're like, oh, I know everyone in that sandwich. And that is so true. Tell me about that.
Well, prior to meeting my husband at a farmer's market, I started working, it was about 28 years ago, at the farmer's market in San Francisco when it was across the street from the ferry building. It was before that was built out and even existed. I lived in Point Reyes Station, and I was friends with Ellen and Bill Strauss, the matriarchs of Strauss Creamery. And I had the good pleasure of renting their little cabin on the bay on Tomales Bay, and we'd have dinners together. And I became good friends with the family. And then I went to market with their son Michael, and I sold their yogurt and butter and milk every Saturday in San Francisco. So I have essentially I've grown up at the farmers market. I have developed friendships, community, and family relations really with some of the greatest farmers in our food shed. And they are still there right alongside me. I say I've been there for 28 years. There's farmers that have been there still going to market that have been there for, that have been doing this for 40 years. And they bring their harvest to market, and they are just as part of an integral part of what I do and who I am as my family, as my apple farmer family.
Yes.
So, and then to this day, every Sunday, Albert Strauss joins me on the backside of the grill, and he comes over to ask me how am I, how are you doing this week? How's it going with you? And he's always in there picking out the cheese crisps that fall off the sandwiches. That's his guilty pleasure every Sunday morning. So I'm delighted to say that, in full circle, it continues to exist to this day. My relations with the Strauss, both is where I launched and entered the farmer market community, and now I see Albert every Sunday, and we eat crispy cheese together, and that's
Yeah.
and
I
that's
mean,
yeah.
such a great story. I feel like just watching the evolution, you say, oh, the Macy's Presto girl, my daughter baking the bacon. And, just over the years, being at the farmer's market, cooking delicious breakfast sandwiches that are like making my mouth water. I'm with you, Christine. I'm getting hungry just looking at them. But to then walk out on faith and say, you know what, I'm going to make this bigger. This is more than just me throwing some sandwiches together for people making a couple bucks here and there. And you went from, the farmers market scene to opening the brick and mortar. And your shop, I look at the pictures of it and I am just in awe. Like just how beautiful it is, how it just even I've never been there, but I feel like if I had walked in there, I would immediately like the smells and what it feels like, the sounds of it would be something that I mean, there's no way that I wouldn't come back after seeing that. Like what was in your mind and when was that decision where you were like, you know what? I'm going to take this and we're going to have a place. Walk me through that mindset.
Well, it started with basically farmers are hungry in the morning, and at the markets, they would always come and want to start their day with bacon and eggs. And part of my guerrilla marketing has been to arrive at the market, throw down 10 pounds of bacon on the grill, and just let them follow and see what happens. And inevitably, the farmers find their way, and then we love to barter, we love to trade. So I would often gift them a bacon and egg sandwich, and then they bring me a case of chard, or a bag of beets, pomegranates, whatever season it is. They would like gift me at my doorstep some of their beautiful produce because they love the sandwiches that I make. So that is part of the magic that happens at the market. And it was in literally I would say, oh my gosh, look at all this food. I have so much produce at the end of the day from feeding so many farmers. that I said, I have to open a sandwich shop because I can no longer, keep up with it in my own personal house. I would share with my neighbors and friends, and I had so much bounty that, that's when I said I really should open a sandwich shop. And of course, now I support my farmers, and I do, pay for my produce. But a lot of it basically started with seeing how well received my sandwiches were, and in turn, I was gifted with some of the most beautiful ingredients to work with, and that's what inspires me. I have the good fortune of having the farmers. By going to the market, I don't just get what's in season, I get the special varietal that no one else can find at a market. A special kind of plum or pluot or what have you that, that wouldn't make it to the grocery store, wouldn't make it through distribution, or is just, such a prized tree that, we're lucky to have it on this Saturday. And that's what I get to take away and bring back to my community in Sebastopol, are just real novelty items that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have the good fortune of trying at another place. So that's part of the magic,
Yeah.
is the
And
relationship, and then the guidance that I get from the farmers themselves.
I
Yeah.
think also part of the magic is that atmosphere that you bring to your shop. Like it's a fast casual, you're getting a sandwich, but you're not just getting a sandwich. Like, and you're not doing it for people that you know. Like strangers can walk in and probably immediately feel like they're home. Like I feel like we talked about it where COVID happened and you were able to, keep your doors open, and you were just because of the model of how you have it, like fast casual. And the thing about it, people being able to walk in and have this experience, and the experience that you're offering to folks and giving them that sense of normalcy when everything was, ambiguity was high, chaos was high, but there was, and forgive me for quoting this, but one of the newspaper articles that quoted you as reliable, in a sense of you go to a festivals and it's like, oh, you're going to get good food here. But I think that also translates into walking into your shop and that I can be transformed from my regular day to day hustle and bustle. But when I go into the farmer's wife, I'm greeted with just,
Yes, well, that is definitely my intention, is that I want people to feel like they're in my home. My shop is no bigger than a matchbox, really. It's 420 square feet. It's all kitchen, with a beautiful marble counter, because I do love beauty. As you can see, I don't even have any sign. I don't have signs. I don't have menus. People don't even really know that it's a, some people say, I didn't even know that this was a sandwich shop. I thought you were a flower store, things like that. And, for me, I I want people to work a little bit and use more of their senses, just because, if you needed to say this is a sandwich shop and here's the menu, or, if you're not going to use your nose and your curiosity, then I don't know if you're my customer, so I want you to work a little harder to, to take a chance to come into some place that doesn't necessarily look like any other place you've ever been in. And also part of it is that I'm so attached to the project that, during COVID, I didn't know where else to go. I mean, that I put everything, every fiber of my being into this shop and this experience. And when it was threatened by the unknown, and I had to, I decided I need to fight with everything I had to hold on to my dream. This became not just, oh, I should do this, I should open a sandwich shop. This became so much more to me. My community that I befriended through food, in turn reciprocated and, held me through some of my most difficult and darkest times that of my life. And I will never forget that. And that is what motivates me to keep going forward and to put something into the world that is as, nutrient dense and beautiful to the senses, and is supporting the most important part of what I'm doing is by supporting our food shed, by supporting our farmers, is supporting our food shed. If we didn't have these hardworking stewards of the land, we would be in big trouble. And so I guess that's what grounds me in my project right now, and is that it's really very much a part of my being. It's all that it's a culmination of all of my life experiences, through art and music and food, community. That's what I'm offering to the greater public, and to my immediate community at hand, my the locals, the people that pass through. I want everyone to kind of be in shock and awe, and then be just enveloped in oozy melty cheese, and the best produce and meats that you around. So
Yeah.
that's my MO. I mean, I when I say it's a culmination of everything I've learned, I'm just a student of life. I found myself, I've taken enough psychology and sociology and philosophy and everything but math, really. And I basically, I'm a study of people. I love to study people, and I love to study connections, and what's meaningful, and what satisfies, and what makes people happy, and that's what I tried to create in my little space, is something that's going to resonate and stay with people a lot longer than than hunger pains, and being satisfied by a sandwich until you're hungry again. I want them to remember, something a little deeper than just what was in the box or on the plate.
Yeah,
So,
I've been showing these pictures of flowers just because I think they're beautiful and they can just be the backdrop of our conversation. But one of them is an Instagram post of one of your customers that came in, and he's an artist and he saw a flower arrangement in your shop, and what he wrote in there, it's like, I my senses were nourished
mhm.
while I was nourished by an amazing lunch. I mean, that to me, like inspiring an artist to make this beautiful painting. I
Ah,
mean,
made my day. This turns out I Googled him thereafter, and he's some fantastic, famous painter from Connecticut. And he was out teaching a workshop in Sonoma County. And he came to my patio on several occasions through his course, and he settled in, and all that little just the little painting that he did was from the flower arrangement that I had on all the tables on the patio outside, because I have a great relationship with Cypress Flower farmer Randy from the Ferry Building Farmers Market, and the Sunday Marin Farmers Market. And we trade a couple tuna melts, and at the end of the market he gives me his stems that he hasn't sold. And then and that's really uh, in celebration of Randy. He's very much one of my highlighted farmers on the counter. And I tell him every week, I said, I couldn't, I don't, I, I wouldn't be, I'm not who I am without you. You complete me. You are a huge part of who is celebrated every week. I talk about you on this counter alongside of whatever seasonal produce is shining. That's who gets front and center stage with me. But that gentleman who sent me that email, that was a little snapshot, that made my day, and that I said, this, I'm really actualizing my dream. I really have found my purpose here. I didn't set out, this was not a plan. There was no business plan. This was, this is grit, determination, patience, and a lot of hard work, just showing up and being dedicated to the cause. And it's all I know at this point. I have one speed, and I cook according to, yes, the seasons, but also very much to vibration. And I think that's what the artist was captured by. My sandwiches, I refer to them as a canvas, and they're my palette. My palette is the produce of the season, and I very much comprise every dish in every box, be it French fries or a salad or a sandwich, to with vibration. I cook with color, and I very much believe that that resonates with people on levels that they may not even be aware of.
Cooking with color. You
Mhm.
that is a perfect segue into the next few slides, but let's just talk
Mhm.
about your food for a little bit. I mean,
Sure.
the one thing, the vibrance of all the color that you have. I mean, I just have a few dishes that are going to come up as we're talking, and every single one of them, it's like the intentionality of how you are pleasing my eye as much as my palate is amazing.
Well, I'm just an ambassador. I facilitate this experience for people, and I am just delighted that people get me. And obviously, there's a desire for this because um, this is, I didn't set out to do this as a career. This was just me kind of always being driven by my own personal relationship with nature and my own desire to kind of go for this. That's why I married a farmer. I could have married or been in a different relationship with people in a different field, but it something was missing. It was just, it wasn't it. I always have needed to do things the hard way. I need to go, I need to dig deep, I need to do the work, I need to get to the source. And that's where I found answers. And that's where I feel safest with, because that's what you can count on in these days where there's so many, there's everything's so tumultuous and up in the air, and just the great unknown, and with everything, specifically with COVID. When we were on lockdown and no one knew what the heck was going on, we had masks on, we had gloves on, we didn't know where anything was going or where it came from or if we were going to live through it. My safe place, I went to my shop, and then I knew that I needed to, be it whether or not the farmers market was open for business or not, needed to go to the farmers market because that's my safe place. In the regard to, it's familiar, it's community, and I went there every week because the one thing you could count on was that the produce was going to be there in all its glory. Okay, that was the one stable factor for me. And when it started in March, and then we made it to spring, and I saw the apricots come and the pluots and the plums, it just gave me such hope, and it just settled me. And I figure if that's what's settling to me, that's what people need too. So I found my purpose during COVID, that's what I needed to be for people. I needed to be the ambassador and the facilitator of what is true and what is honest, what is constant, and what is nutrient dense and healing. I mean, food for me truly is medicine. And that's what we needed in these trying times. We need to feed our nervous system, we need to feed our bodies, and we need to feed our souls. So I would come back from market with even more drive and interest to bring just the best food, produce, and I would bring it, and I would display it larger than life. I mean, I back to that article where they said I was reliable. It's funny. I'm like, well, that's pretty good. I was the third sentence in the Chronicle. I'm glad they mentioned me, but reliable. I'm the Salvador Dali of sandwiches. That's kind of where I'm always coming from. I want to be that outrageous, over the top, I want to always kind of like blow people's minds around like what's presented to them. And for me, that was my purpose. That's what I'm meant to do, is to bring back the goods and to share them with my community. There's very good eating in Sebastopol. The people who come through, they come back, and I'm grateful for that. And I guess it was at that moment, for me, COVID too is interesting, because when I opened my shop, it was an unknown. I knew that I was able to help my family, help my farm, put my kids through fantastic schools with the money that I made at farmers markets and festivals. What I didn't know was that, is this going to translate in a brick and mortar shop? I have no like real restaurant experience. I've worked in restaurants, but it was always kind of that part-time thing to get you through and on your way. And I never really thought that this was like something that was like really what I was meant to do. And when I opened the shop, I didn't know if it was going to work or not. And then um, and then COVID hit, and I was forced to shelve really all of the festival work, which paid a great deal of the bills and the bottom line. Um, the farmer markets were enough to pay the last semester of college tuition that we were still on the hook for, the car payments, the rent at my brick and mortar that never stopped or never got reduced. I was able to make all my payments because of my farmer markets. So and what it also did was, it made me stop and dedicate 100% to the brick and mortar. Where when I first opened in the early days, I got it going, but because I was so uncertain as to if it was going to be a success and if it was going to work, I still had to do my markets and I had to do my festivals. And in some ways, I was running it a little too lean. And for me, COVID made me reel it all in, and made me, I was the only one. I ran the shop with one other cook during COVID. It was just the two of us. And I put 100%, because that's what I had. I had the shop and I had my market, and I was able to dedicate all of my attention to the dream of a shop in Sebastopol. So in some ways, um, COVID made me and my little brick and mortar even better. It made me really define what my vision is and what my purpose is. And for that, I'm so grateful. That's one of the silver linings. I maybe wouldn't have had that opportunity to dedicate so much of myself to the shop. Maybe I would have kept it running so thin, and it would only have been a fraction of what it is now. Through COVID, I had my best year financially ever, and I didn't do any festivals. And the markets were okay. They weren't, fantastic. It came from the shop. People were coming to the store. And a lot of that I was open 7 days a week. I created like a civic center. All of the tables on the patio were cleared. And I, in turn, turned up the Spotify, or with my playlist. I curated my own playlist because I love music, and I turned it up loud on my EOS speakers, and I created a real civic center where people would come because it was outside. It's a 12.5-acre campus. And so we were positioned very well during these trying times, with everyone needing to be outside. Counter service, but it was a place to gather, and people still wanted to gather, so they could gather and be in social distance, and they could gather and they could hear an old tune that resonated with them good times, how it used to be. Let the good times roll, and all sorts of great familiar music that transported people just out of the thick of things, the thick of the daily. They would come out for a sandwich and they would thank me for being just kind of an oasis from the daily,
Yeah.
and that meant a lot to
I
me.
feel
Still
like
means a lot.
that's Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like what our units are going through. When, the pandemic first started, we were that sense of normalcy, and that yes, they're still getting fed every day. They're still getting great food. The packaging might look a little different, the delivery is a little different, but we were still able to provide that experience. And food has that just transcending way of just bringing us together and like making us feel at home, making us feel ease, making us feel, like you said, that oasis. You talked about the festivals. Let's get into some of those. You've been doing festivals for a while. Let's show everybody what you got going on.
Oh yeah.
So I have a little video that's going to play. Like, one of the things that really sparked me in one of our pre-interviews is you were saying, I'm here at this festival, and when you look around, you see all these big burly guys and they're running their tents, and then there's you, and you don't look like them, but you're working 10 times as hard and you're making it happen.
Yeah, well, it's I've been blessed by having a strong body and constitution, because it takes a lot. And if I weren't an athlete, I probably wouldn't be able to withstand the hours and uh, the physicality of it. It's a lot. So I I did this year's Outside Lands, where a lot of the familiar vendors chose not to, be it because of labor, the time of the year that it was scheduled, and or for one reason or another opted out. And I had that opportunity to do that too, but you know, I thought it was really important for people. I know were needing to gather. It was part of the history of why we love San Francisco. This is a festival in Golden Gate Park that's like none other, and it was really my desire to be part of that magic, to be part of the community. I couldn't miss that up. It would be me. It would be because I go to work in I go to work in San Francisco. I go to work in Marin. I go to work. I've been 3 different counties, sometimes 4. If we count now. I mean, at least 4 different counties. I feed a lot of people in the Bay Area, and I felt like it was my duty to show up and bring the magic, and that's why I did it. And I'm really happy I did. And I was Bay Area proud. I mean, especially on the heels of everything we've been hearing about other festivals. And me, oh my gosh, heart. That was like the week after our Outside Lands, and when we heard about the tragedy in Texas. And I look back and I just said to myself, I was like, I'm so Bay Area proud. The just the demeanor, the energy, the kindness, the community. We were a community that showed up. We it spoke volumes, because I had a lovely lady that came up on the Friday after the festival to my shop with 2 of her girlfriends from the South Bay, and they were going to have lunch in San Francisco. And the gal said, "No, let's just get up," because they were going to Bodega for the weekend. She said, "No, let's not have lunch in the city. Let's get up to Sonoma County. You've got to come to the Farmer's Wife." And so she came and she said, "I ordered exactly what I had at the festival. I ate these sandwiches. They were so magnificent. I wanted my friends to have." And then we got chatting, and she said, "You were so busy. You were so busy. And when you started calling numbers out, they were out of order. Because sometimes the tuna melt comes up faster than like a sausage sandwich, obviously. So sandwiches got called out of order." And she said, "It became a thing." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And she said, "No, it was a good thing. Every time you called out an order, everyone started cheering. Yay, that's my order." And I said, "Oh, that's the Bay Area for you." You know what I mean? It could have gone bad. It could have been like, it could have been, "Where's mine? Can I get a read?" It wasn't never like that. It was that's the energy that I love about the where I work and where I live, um and so anyway, I probably I couldn't have done it. Also, I couldn't have done a festival without the amazing volunteers that make it happen. And those are kids that came 6 years ago to the festival with me. In fact, two of them volunteered from when I had an ad on Craigslist, and they fell in love, and they went and traveled around the world, and then and now they're getting married, they're engaged. So I have like a little love story tied to my booth too. And she's now turned total professional, and she handled all of my spreadsheet and organized everyone and sent out the emails to everyone, and she led the whole front of the house operation. I had a gentleman who is a chef in San Francisco, and he volunteered to help me. And for me, that's what feeds me. That restored my faith in the humankind of everyone from different kids that I've fed in Marin since they were 8 years old, now a senior at UCLA, wanting to come and volunteer. So he brought a couple of students. So there's people from all different walks, and they introduced themselves. Like all those people in those videos, they never met before, but they were all smart people that are critical thinkers, thinking on their feet. And we put together a little mini restaurant, and that's the stuff. Like I love that I live for that. I love that when it's and that's kind of what drives my shop too, is that it's a leap of faith too, and people know that. Like I had no experience doing this. In fact, I'm lucky I know how to use the register to the degree that I do, because I am tech illiterate. If I only had the help of some tech genius
Mhm.
or giant, it's amazing what we might be able to accomplish.
Right.
But I do know some things though, and I know what I'm creating is bigger than just sandwiches, because people tell me all the time, and that that you know that they are fed on a deeper level than just their appetite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And again, I studied advertising in college. I studied philosophy. I've loved deep ecology. I love, environmental activism. And I try to bring all of it together. And I try to lead by example, really, is what I try to do. And that's probably you know, the biggest gift is realizing that um, that I'm not in this alone. This is theater to a degree, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for everyone else too.
Yeah.
I'm just a part of it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into this next thing, when we want to talk about joy, I want to invite everybody, if you have comments, if you have questions, just go ahead and put them in chat as we talk. We want this to be a conversation. And if you're watching on replay, this is for you too. I know we can't all make it live, so there are comments down below. Feel free to put them in there so we can keep the conversation going. So the next thing I want to talk about, we talked about COVID, we talked about a lot of things, and in our pre interviews, we talked a lot about joy. That was the one thing I was like, you're telling me crazy stories of despair, so almost tragedies, but yet you were able to find joy. And not only find it, you're able to spread it. And you were able to remind people about joy. And you talk about leading your kitchen with joy and making sure that how you lead isn't going to bring down the rest of the crew. You and me, I think we're alike, and that I can walk in a room and totally brighten it up, but I can also walk in a room with a rain cloud. And having that responsibility as a leader and saying, yes, I'm going to come in here with sunshine and choose that and live that and walk that. Like,
Mhm.
how do you keep that going?
Well, I've been through some things, and I don't know if this is the right platform to get into it, but I've been through some serious things, and And I believe that it's because I guess I am able to handle it. And I guess that's, what I do believe is that, if you could, you wouldn't have been presented with this stuff unless you can handle it. And um and I believe that every experience, be it a triumph or trauma, prepares you for the next one, because that's life. It's not going to stop. It's life keeps coming at you. It never ends. Is really what I've realized. And it's almost like it's a test. You're being tested to see how you navigate through, and how if you have a triumph, are you going to be a real, like, brat about it, and you're going to be real selfish with it? Or if you have a trauma, are you going to fall into a ball and just like melt in self-pity and tears? Or, what's the test, and how are you going to rise and come through it and carry on and be resilient? And um and that's just like, for me, because I'm a mother, I really found I had no choice. What am I going to how's what's the example I'm going to set for my children? And so I've dusted my boots off each and every time. I've picked my head up, and I've carried myself with, you know being proud. And if anything, what I've had to shake off are people wanting to kind of feel, pity me, or feel so sorry for me. And that doesn't feel good either. To a degree, you understand people feeling like, oh, I'm sorry that you're going through that. But it's like, sometimes it just was like they would never stop. And I really had to turn it around, and I'm very vocal, because it's like, I'm not some sad, sorry sack that's just gonna like take it lying down. I'm gonna get up, and I'm gonna lead by example. And I guess when I say that, um, it's, um, it's, I guess, I get a little emotional when I think about, things. But, um, you know, at the end of the day, I still have it better than 95, if not 8% of the people on this planet. I don't have, when I really think about, it's like, yeah, I've been through some things, but you still want to see some things. Let's look at Darfur. Let's look at Syria. Let's look at like what's going on in Belmont, or places that I can't. Let's look what's going on in parts of San Francisco. It's everywhere. And I know, I've had some things, but I've also been blessed, and I have the strength, and I have the community, and I still have so much. At the end of the day, I still have more than, my cup is still overflowing, you know, and I could afford to take some hits, is how I look at it. And, and you just can't let it get you down, because and then my thing is that they always wanted to talk about me, where it's like, what, I know you have a hard time too. Everyone does. Everyone in their life has something going on, be it their mother has cancer, or their kids going through mental illness, or they're lost everything. It's like everyone has it. And so I guess, because I'm maybe a little more of like a public figure at this point with what I do and what I've created, it's a little more visible, and my story is a little more of an open book. So I made the conscious decision to, to just kind of show people that you can get, what, you carry on, you know. And I remember watching the 9/11 documentary that aired in September, and the rabbi at the end, who was talking about, like, they've 20 years later, they have the relationships, their friendships that have evolved
Mhm.
since, he bumped into the young woman on the sidewalk after, everything that happened. And his takeaway 20 years later, it was like he was just in awe of people's resiliency, of people's just like, you know, the, the, the what did he say? It was like the will to live is what blew him away. And I guess that's kind of what got me too, because there were times where I was like, I'm gonna end it. I don't think I could do it. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You've got to realize
Yeah.
that, and that's where you dig deep, and you have, and like it is pretty strong. Our will to keep living is really very strong.
Yeah.
So
When we talked about like bringing that joy, it's exhausting. And it's like, what is that thing that kind of refuels you to do it? And you had this really great quote in our pre-interview when you said, "Food brings customers, customers bring the community brings family, and this is what saves me." Like, that's the thing. You have to find that thing, and it all comes back to the food. The food, you make the food, and it gives you something back, and that cycle that keeps going.
yeah, and that's what I say is, people think, people want to thank me all the time for feeding them, and they don't have any idea of how much they're feeding me, and they're keeping me going. It's such a reciprocated relationship, and to have something that is so nourishing, um, be the integral part and the glue of it all, the binding is just is really symbolic in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, it really is about, it's about community. It's how you treat people. It's how you, it's what you choose. I mean, I learned when I started this business, again, not knowing, not having any, real, business acumen or anything. It was real just heart and soul. And what I found worked best and how people responded best was, so much based on what I brought into the booth, a 10 by 10 booth. Now, a shop that isn't really much bigger than a 10 by 10 booth is, it's palpable, the energies that you bring into the room. And if I'm the leader, then I have to, it's on my shoulders to direct of what kind of day we're going to have. And I've witnessed it firsthand. If I come in there and I'm sour, I learned this in the early days. You're not going to get what you hope for out of people and out of your team. You're not going to build a team that wants to go into battle with you each and every day.
Mhm.
But and on the flip side, if you come in and you point out something that's beautiful and lighthearted and make them laugh. Oh wow, you will have dedicated, loyal, and that's, people along the way. I mean, when I got the shop and I had someone say, "Oh, well, you should maybe be an LLC. You should probably, you have a lot of risk by not being an LLC." And this is, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So LLC, all this stuff. So he's like, "You've been pretty lucky. You have all these employees. You've had business for 10 years, and you haven't had any issues with any employees. Like, you must be a pretty good person to work for." I was like, "Well, I'm just, I mean, I would expect that I would like to be treated, and I'd like to treat people how I would like to be treated." That's really, I guess, what drives me. It's as simple as that, really, is just treating people with respect and, honoring what they bring to the table, because you are only as good as your team, and you cannot have any kind of operation. Some say you can't have a food business on your own. You can't have anything on your own. It's all about your team, and,
Yeah.
and how you take care of one another.
Yeah.
So,
So we have a couple more minutes left. You guys, if you're in the chat, show some questions. I see one coming up. Pio has one. He says, "Hi, Kendra, first of all. And after all the amazing resilience you demonstrated, what do you want to do next? Where do you see your business growing to?"
okay, well, what I hope for, I started something, and people are responding to it. I hear all the time, oh gosh, you should come to Brooklyn. You should come to the East Village. You should come to South Bay. People really do have a desire to have more of what I do. And even just the farmer markets alone, I would like to be able to, continue to feed people in multiple counties. But you know what, I'm 55 and my elbow hurts, and I'm only human. My body's giving out. I i physically know that, there's a beginning and an end if I just keep doing things the way that I'm doing things now. I would love to be able to take what is, you know what I've created and where the magic is and what is it beyond the food, and I know what it is actually. And I would love to be able to have it be a legacy. I'd like to be able to create this in other environments, because I believe that I have that this is bigger than food here. I have people tell me all the time that, when I say, "Oh, it's pandemic, you can do this at home. I'm not essential." And they tell me, "You're essential to me. This is essential to me." And they're not just talking about the sandwiches. It's like it's the vibration, and it's the art is what drives me. If you ask what inspires me, nature and art are really the driving force, and I do it through food. But I'm feeding people on a deeper level of the and satisfying people's need for something that's bigger than maybe themselves even, and illustrating that they're part of something that's bigger than just them. They're not alone. And yeah, so what I would love to have, as I said, it's just me. I have no partners, I have no investors. I did all this through blood and sweat and tears and determination. And if I had, the right partnership, we could take this thing places. I mean, imagine me. I did this just by feeling my way through this. I didn't plan this, but now it's bigger than me. I would love for this to go to the next level, and to, bring the delicious food with it, but also tap into the elements of what I've created that are so healing to to people. And so I'm looking for partnership, really, is what I would like to do, because physically, I'm going to seed. That's basically.
Please. I have a question for you. And this is probably going to be the last question in our pre-interviews, and we didn't even get scratch the surface of all the stories that you told me. And so my question for you is, when does the book come out?
Oh,
You know,
when I have time, I have time to write it. I'm keeping notes, and there's a lot of material here. You know, when we get into, if I were to get into some of the things, I won't even say, but basically I keep my eye on my shop. My shop allows me to be distracted from my life, because my life hasn't always been that easy. And my shop saved me, really, my people, my community. And that's where the book lies. And So yes, it's a book about the recipes, musings and recipes from the farmer's wife. When life gives you apples, recipes and musings from the farmer's wife. There's been, it has all the elements of a major motion picture for real. It's pretty,
mhm.
and I don't need to go into it. Just trust me.
Yeah, we'll
It's,
read about
you
it
know,
when the book comes
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. And it's really just a matter of time. I mean, when you work every day, and I do, You don't have a lot of time to get the book off the ground. But if I partner with the right people, help me, sit down with someone I've never written a book. I don't really know where to begin and where to end. I know I have a story to be told.
Yeah.
So will happen. So
Right.
I hope.
Well, we are officially out of time. Kendra, thank you for taking the time to chat with us, to share your experience, share your knowledge, everything. Yeah, I'm sure everybody in the chat, they're the replay. You guys, if you're watching on a replay, let me know how it is. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much. If you guys have other suggestions for the diversity series topics or guests, please let us know. We definitely want to hear from you. And so, with that, everyone, let's thank Kendra for coming and sharing. And that's the end of today's diversity series, Lead, Grow, Deepen. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me, allowing me this time to share.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.